Good day everyone, especially to our instructor, Miss Almira Boncales. Before I start my presentation, let me introduce myself. I am Clyde Marie Goodmalin, Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in English, Black 2. Today, I am going to tackle about the classical theory, the definition of the two approaches, the moral philosophical and historical biographical approach. Then, I will choose a piece of literature, a poem and a song, and analyze the form of literature using classical theory. It's either moral philosophical approach or historical biographical approach. Let's proceed. What is classical theory? Classical theory means clearness, elegance, symmetry, and repose produced by attention to traditional forms. It is based on the idea that nature and human nature could be understood by reason and thought. Next is the two approaches. First is the moral philosophical approach. Moral philosophical approach is defined as an approach that suggests the larger purpose of literature is to teach morality and to probe philosophical question. In the words of Samuel Johnson, it is believed that authors intend to instruct the audience in some way. This approach forces readers to dig deeper, discover the moral values, and ask questions instead of accepting things the way they seem. In this way, the text can be interpreted in various ways rather than just one text. In addition, it is based upon judging the character of an author, usually without any past friendship with that author. Because of that, the art can be lost in ethical arguments provoked by the philosophical. The philosophical approach analyzes the morals and the idea of the work, which some deem too difficult to interpret fairly. Opposers to the philosophical approach believe that books should be based purely on its artistic content, not your morals. This approach focuses on themes, view of the world, moral statements, author's philosophy, and etc. Next is the historical biographical approach. This approach combines the two methods for interpreting texts. Using this critical lens, readers will fruitfully analyze a text by making connection between the content, its author, and his or her historical context. Biographical approach is a form of literary criticism which analyzes a writer's biography to show the relationship between the author's life and their works of literature. It is also linked with the historical approach relating the author's life and time before with the text. The approach is used to help understand the meaning of the text, not drown it out with irrelevant information. Using biographical approach, we will connect the author's life in the literary piece and understand why she wrote the said piece. So, I have here a poem entitled Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. Before we proceed, let's know about facts about Robert Frost. Robert Frost received 4 Pulitzers for his poetry and a U.S. Congressional Gold Medal. He was the first poet to address a U.S. presidential inauguration, and an English publishers first recognized his poetic talent. I have here the summary of the poem. The speaker in the poem is traveling at night through the snow and pauses with his horse near the woods by a neighbor's house to watch the snow falling around him. His horse shakes his harness bells, questioning the pause Perhaps this place isn't on their usual road, or he is curious that there doesn't appear to be a farmhouse nearby. The speaker continues to stand near the woods, attracted by the deep, dark silence of his surroundings. He feels compelled to move further into the snowy woods, but he ultimately decides to continue, concluding with perhaps the most famous lines of the poem, "But I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep." Next is the background of the poem. Robert Frost was one of the America's most esteemed poets. So Robert Frost is the author of the poem. His poetry often documented rural life in America, particularly in New England. The poem "Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening" is considered a hallmark of simplicity. With only 16 lines, Frost used to describe it as a short poem with a long name. It is said that Frost wrote this poem in 1922 in a moment of inspiration. The poem was first published on March 7, 1923 in the magazine New Republic. So let's analyze the poem. As I read the poem, I have discovered that this is a moral philosophical approach. So we will be examining this poem by the moral philosophical approach analysis. In the poem "Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening" by Robert Frost tells the story of a rider traveling through the snowy woods on the darkest evening of the year. He stops to gaze upon the woods as they are filling up with snow. As he is drawn to the beauty of the woods, he has obligations which pull him away from the enticement of nature. Robert Frost is suggesting that an individual may stop and admire the beauty his or her surrounding has to offer, but must be also aware of the obligation he or her has to uphold. Frost emphasizes the beauty and serenity the rider feels about the woods. This goes to show that everybody has the desire sometimes to just simply stop and appreciate the wonders of their surroundings, but simply cannot as they have obligations to uphold. Every positive or negative change in our lives begins with a clear and equivocal decision that we are going to either make a right and decision or a right selfless decision. The poem has a deeper meaning than a man stopping by to admire the woods on a snowy evening. The woods are located on the edge of society, and the speaker's horse finds it odd that he is stopping by the woods. This is the first indication of how structured and routine the speaker's life must be, because even sightseeing is considered abnormal. The speaker wishes to stay in the woods, but his horse gives his harness bells a shake to signify that the speaker has to leave and tend to his responsibilities. The narrator wants to stay in the lovely, dark, and deep woods, but he soon realizes that he has obligation to return to. He realizes how ridiculous he was to think that he could escape the reality of his life by repeating that he has miles to go before he can sleep, returning to a life within civilization. However, he shows reluctance in returning to his routine lifestyle with the word "but." Frost emphasizes the rigidity of the speaker's life to remind his readers to enjoy life, ignore responsibilities, and stop to smell the roses every once in a while. In conclusion, Moral or philosophical approach usually describes or evaluates a work in terms of the ideas and values it contains. This often means examining a work's ideas and values, both those expressed directly by the narrator or character and those implied by the overall design and content in relation to a particular ethical, philosophical, or religious system. The poem Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost is best analyzed using this approach because he uses it to teach moral values. I have also here a example of a song which I find it is an example of a historical biographical approach. It entitled 15 by Taylor Swift. Let us read first the background of the song. 15 is a song written and recorded by American singer-songwriter Taylor Swift for her second studio album, Fearless. Produced by Swift and Nathan Chapman, it is a country pop song with narrative lyrics inspired by Swift's freshman year of high school. In the lyrics, Swift and her high school friend Abigail Anderson, both at 15, go through teenage love and heartbreak together. So, let's examine the song using biographical historical approach or historical biographical approach. The song 15 was written by Taylor Swift when she was 19 years old. Taylor Swift is known for her narrative style of writing songs that usually relates to her personal life. One of the first songs that she wrote where she connected her teenage years was the song 15 that we will analyze today. Taylor Swift was styled as the woman singing diary by some because she writes her songs mostly about breakups. At a young age, she already knew that she was meant for music. Seeing that passion, her dad, Scott Swift, requested to be relocated to another office from Pennsylvania to Nashville, the center of American country music, to pursue her beloved daughter's dream. Taylor was 11 years old back then. She wrote the song 15 when she was 19 years old, and it was all about her as a teen. The song shared about Taylor Swift's personal teenage life, how she fell in love at a very young age, and how she met her high school best friend, Abigail Anderson. Her first ever self-titled album was all about her teenage years, and that's how he captured the hearts of many, especially the teens, because they can relate a lot. Taylor was a type of teenage girl who also desired to catch the attention of one of those senior boys. As the song progresses, Taylor meets a girl named Abigail, who had a big role in the song because she was her best friend in real life. Some were asking if it was okay that Taylor name dropped her best friend in the song, and she assured them that she asked permission from Abigail. Abigail agreed because she's hoping that someone will learn from her experiences stated in the song, and it is for the best. The song focuses on the teenage life of Taylor Swift together with her best friend Abigail. She shared how there were during their teenage years and proved in the song that it actually happens to every teen what they experience, as stated in the song. At a young age, Taylor already realized how naive we could be in our teenage years, that if someone tells us that they love us, we will certainly believe them. And Taylor added that at 15, we don't realize important things that much. Taylor shared how she fell in love and realized that it would never be worth it at a young age, and she got bigger dreams and priorities. But her best friend gave it all to the boy, who eventually changed his mind in the end. Taylor cried for her best friend. They both cried because of how their young hearts experienced pain at the age of the 15. To conclude my analysis, the song 15 made a huge impact on how the young Taylor Swift molded the Taylor we know today. The song tells about heartbreaks and new beginnings, and that made us love her even more. Because of how she connected herself to her craft, made her famous and admired by so many people. This song taught us what Taylor's realized that we can be impulsive and wild at a young age, but by the end of the day, fulfilling our dreams is the best thing to do. So that's all. I hope you learned something about my presentation, and thank you.